I never thought I'd find myself in this position. My name is Mark, and I'm a 32-year-old guy who thought he had it all figured out. I had a lovely wife, Lisa, and we were in the middle of planning our dream wedding. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, yet beneath that glossy exterior, things were beginning to unravel. The signs were subtle at first, a missed call here, a delayed text response there, but I shrugged it off. Who hasn't been busy planning a wedding, right? Lisa was always the life of the party, but as our wedding date drew near, she became more distant. I'd catch her looking at her phone with this strange smile, and whenever I asked about it, she'd dismiss me with a wave of her hand and a quick, "Oh, it's just work stuff." I wanted to believe her, but something in my gut told me to dig deeper. It all came crashing down one fateful evening. I had just come home from work a bit early, excited to surprise Lisa with dinner. As I stepped into the living room, I noticed her laptop was open on the coffee table. In the corner of my eye, I saw a message notification pop up. Curiosity got the better of me and I walked over to check it out. The name was familiar: Ryan, our wedding planner. What shocked me wasn't just that he was messaging her, it was the content of the messages. They were flirty. No, scratch that, straight-up sexual. I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. My heart raced and I felt sick to my stomach. After that, I felt like I was in a haze. I confronted her the next day, and to say it was chaotic would be an understatement. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with surprise, maybe even a hint of guilt. "What about?" she asked, feigning innocence. "I saw the messages, Lisa. Don't even try to deny it." Her face fell, and for a moment I thought she might actually confess. Instead, she went into defensive mode. "It's not what it looks like, Mark. You have to understand, Ryan is just a friend. We were discussing wedding details." The anger within me flared up and I couldn't hold back. "Oh, really? Is that why the messages are riddled with sexual innuendos?" The confrontation escalated and she finally broke down. "Okay, fine, maybe there was something between us, but it didn't mean anything. You're the one I love." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sheer audacity of her words sent me reeling. How could she say that after what she had done? The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I went from being angry to devastated in a matter of seconds. In the days that followed, I was a wreck. I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, confusion, and that suffocating sadness that clings to you like a shadow. How could someone I loved so deeply betray me like this? I felt like I was living in a nightmare, and yet I was wide awake. I couldn't shake the image of her with Ryan, our wedding planner, the guy I trusted to help create the best day of our lives. The irony was almost comical if it weren't so tragic. As I tried to process everything, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this define me. I deserved better, and I was going to fight for my happiness, even if it meant letting go of the person I thought I knew. But how was I going to do that? What would my next steps be? I needed a plan, something solid that would allow me to move past the betrayal and find closure. I started thinking about it. What revenge could I possibly seek? It wasn't about hurting her. It was more about reclaiming my life. I spent the next few days brainstorming how to move forward, and honestly, it felt good to focus on something other than the pain. I began to write down my feelings, letting the words flow out of me. I realized that I needed to confront my emotions head-on. I had to channel this hurt into something productive, something that would lead me to a better place. And with that, I decided it was time to take control. I had a plan forming in my head, and I was ready to execute it. Little did I know, the next steps would be just as tumultuous as the discovery itself. The path to closure was going to be anything but straightforward. The emotional roller coaster was just beginning, and I was determined to come out the other side stronger. The days after the confrontation were a blur. I bounced between anger and heartbreaking sadness, struggling to find my footing again. I kept thinking about how Lisa and I had built a life together, our hopes for the future, our dreams. Now it all felt like a lie. I spent hours awake at night, replaying every conversation, every laugh, every intimate moment we had shared. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had been tainted by her betrayal. I knew I needed to be smart about this. I started gathering evidence of her infidelity, Not just those messages, but anything else that could paint a clear picture of the situation. I went through her phone when she was in the shower, found more messages between her and Ryan, some of which went into explicit detail about their rendezvous. The rage bubbled again, but I forced myself to remain calm. I was gathering ammunition and I had to make sure I stayed focused on my end goal. Every time I saw her, I put on a mask of normalcy. I tried to act like everything was fine. She would come home from work. Her posture relaxed and I would force myself to smile and ask about her day. I wanted to see if she would slip up, but Lisa was crafty. She had mastered the art of deception and I was just the unsuspecting husband, playing into her hands while she continued her charade. One night, I decided I would take this to the next level. I reached out to Ryan. I found his number in Lisa's messages and shot him a text. "We need to talk." I was surprised at how quickly he responded, probably thinking he was going to get the chance for another secret rendezvous. I set up a meeting at a coffee shop, where I planned to confront him about his role in this betrayal. When the day finally came, I sat at a small table in the corner, trying to keep my nerves in check. I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of excitement mixed with dread. I had no idea how this was going to go down, but I knew it was necessary. After what felt like an eternity, Ryan walked in. He was a tall guy with an easy smile, the kind of guy charm anyone. I felt my blood boil as he approached me, unaware of the storm that was about to hit him. "Hey man, what's up?" he asked, his voice light and carefree. I gestured for him to take a seat, and when he did, I leaned in slightly, trying to exude confidence. "We need to talk about Lisa." His smile faltered, and I watched as the realization dawned on him. "Oh, okay, what about her?" I laid it all out on the table, the messages, the affair, and how I had caught them red-handed. I could see his demeanor shift from relaxed to defensive. "Look, Mark, it wasn't like that. I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said, his voice tightening. "We were just working on the wedding and things escalated." I leaned back, letting his words sink in. "So you didn't think telling me would be the right thing to do?" I shot back. "You knew she was engaged and you still went after her. You should have known better, Ryan." He stammered out excuses, saying things like, "It just happened, and we had a connection." The more he spoke, the angrier I became. I wasn't interested in his pathetic justifications. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he had done. "You need to back off, man," I said, my voice low and steady. "Whatever you think you have with her, it's not real. If you truly respected our relationship, you would have never crossed that line. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Your reputation as a wedding planner is about to take a hit." Ryan's face paled, and I could see the realization that I wasn't just some victim he could brush aside. This was a fight, and I was ready to take him down. I stood up to leave, feeling a surge of empowerment. It felt good to take control, to confront the man who had played a part in destroying my marriage. The confrontation with Ryan was just the first step in my plan for revenge. I felt invigorated, like I had finally taken some of the power back. I knew I had a long way to go, but I was ready to move into the next phase of my plan. When I returned home, Lisa was sitting on the couch, absorbed in her phone. I could feel my heart race as I walked in, the tension palpable between us. She looked up, a smile forming on her lips, but it quickly faded when she saw my expression. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, feigning innocence. I knew I had to tread carefully. I couldn't let her see how much her betrayal had hurt me, or how much I had learned from my meeting with Ryan. "Just had a chat with Ryan," I said nonchalantly. Her eyes widened slightly and a flicker of panic crossed her face. "Oh, about what?" "About the wedding planning," I replied, keeping my tone casual. "You know how it is, just making sure we're all on the same page." Lisa nodded, but I could see the gears turning in her mind. She was trying to gauge whether I knew more than I was letting on. I decided to keep her on her toes. "I think I'm going to take over some of the details myself," I added, watching as her expression morphed from confusion to subtle concern. I had no idea how this would play out, but I was ready to dig deeper and cause a rift that would ultimately lead to her realizing the gravity of what she had done and the consequences it would bring. I didn't just want to erase her from my life. I wanted her to know that actions have repercussions. With a newfound determination, I started plotting my next moves. I was ready to turn the tables, and I had a feeling that revenge might just be the key to my healing. After my confrontation with Ryan, I felt like I had regained a sense of control over my life. But that was just the beginning. I knew that taking charge of the wedding plans would serve a dual purpose. It would prevent Lisa from continuing her affair with Ryan, and it would allow me to weave the threads of my revenge into the fabric of our lives. In the days that followed, I started to take over the planning process. I reached out to vendors, finalized contracts, and began crafting the vision for the wedding that Lisa had once insisted was going to be the best day of our lives. I wanted to make sure it still could be, but for a different reason. I was going to turn the tables on her and Ryan, and I wanted to make it known that I was no longer the oblivious husband. I made subtle changes to our plans, like shifting the venue to a different location and working with our caterer to tweak the menu. Lisa noticed, of course, and her initial surprise turned to suspicion. "Why are you so involved in the planning all of a sudden?" she asked one evening as I was poring over seating charts. "You've never cared this much before," I feigned nonchalance. "I just realized I want to be more involved. It's our wedding after all, why shouldn't I help out?" I watched her expression closely, searching for any signs of guilt or regret, but she was good at hiding it. All I could see was a mixture of confusion and annoyance. "Okay, but you're not going to make drastic changes without consulting me, right?" she pressed, crossing her arms defensively. I smiled sweetly. "Of course not. I just want to make sure everything is perfect." The tension between us thickened, but I kept my cool. I was 2 steps ahead of her, and I could see her starting to realize that I was no longer the passive partner in this relationship. As the days wore on, I continued to push forward with my plans while gathering more evidence of Lisa's infidelity. I started following her discreetly when she said she was going out with friends. My heart raced each time I spotted her at local pubs or cafes, often with Ryan, laughing and sharing intimate moments. It was crushing to see, but I stayed focused. One evening, I decided to confront her once more. I knew she had been out with Ryan that afternoon, and I wanted to put her on the spot. I waited until she returned home, wearing a smile that I now recognized as insincere. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" she chirped, her tone overly bright. "Fine, yours?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Oh, just hanging out with the girls." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because I saw you at the cafe with Ryan." Her smile faltered and the panic was evident in her eyes. "What? No, I was with, Sarah. We had little brunch." "Sarah," I countered, leaning closer. "Is that why I saw you two sharing a dessert and whispering into each other's ears?" She stammered, her mind racing to concoct a believable excuse. "Okay, fine, I ran into him. We were just talking about the wedding details. I swear, it's not like that." Her excuses were falling apart, and I felt a sense of satisfaction. "You know what, Lisa? I think you need to stop lying. This isn't working for me anymore." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "Let's be honest. You and Ryan have crossed a line, and I deserve better than this." The confrontation that followed was explosive. Lisa's anger bubbled over as she accused me of being controlling, of overreacting, and of not trusting her. "This is ridiculous, Mark. You're blowing everything out of proportion. It's just wedding planning." "Just wedding planning," I shot back, my voice rising. "You mean the same wedding that you've turned into an emotional affair? That's what this is, Lisa. You're cheating on me, and you're trying to cover it up with excuses." For a moment, the air hung heavy between us. I could see her grappling with the reality of her situation. "Maybe I just feel trapped, okay?" she finally admitted, her voice softening. "I wanted the perfect wedding, and I thought everything would magically fall into place. But when things got stressful, I didn't know how to handle it." I felt a mix of anger and pity. "So your solution was to sleep with the wedding planner?" Lisa's defenses crumbled, and I watched as her bravado faded. "I didn't mean for it to happen, it just did. I didn't want to hurt you, but what, Lisa? You wanted to have your cake and eat it too." I interjected, feeling the weight of betrayal crash over me again. "I'm sorry," she pleaded, her voice wavering. "I messed up and I'm scared. I'm scared of the wedding, scared of us, scared of everything. I feel like I'm drowning and Ryan was just there." Her admission hit me hard. I knew I should feel sympathy for her, but the pain of her betrayal was still raw. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "You need to figure out what you really want," I finally said. "But I can't be a part of this charade anymore." The atmosphere in the room shifted as we both realized what this confrontation meant. I was done being the forgiving husband while she continued her affair. It was time for me to put my plan into motion and ensure my closure. I couldn't change the past, but I could influence the future. The next morning, I decided to take a more definitive step. I reached out to a divorce lawyer, wanting to know what my options were if things didn't change. I knew the stakes. It was time to make preparations for my future without Lisa in it. I had to think about myself first, and the process of moving on started now. As I hung up the phone, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I was ready to take the next step toward reclaiming my life and my sanity. This was no longer just about revenge. It was about finding my own happiness again. After the confrontation with Lisa, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I had laid bare the truth, and while I still felt the heaviness of betrayal in my chest, it was accompanied by a flicker of hope. This was a crucial turning point. I was no longer going to let my life be dictated by her choices. I started to envision a future without her, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of optimism. In the days that followed, I kept my plans under wraps. I didn't want Lisa to know how seriously I was considering separating from her. I continued to act as if everything was normal, although it was increasingly difficult to maintain the facade. I made a point to attend all our wedding planning meetings, ensuring that I was right there, front and center, as a constant reminder of what she was risking. One afternoon, I found myself sitting across from Ryan at our chosen venue, discussing the final touches. I could see him struggling to keep his cool as he stole glances at me, clearly aware of the tension hanging in the air. I was determined to keep him on his toes. "So Ryan, how's the planning going? I hope you've been treating my fiancée well," I said with a smile that did quite reach my eyes. He swallowed hard, clearly uncomfortable. "Yeah, of course. Just trying to make sure everything's perfect for you too," he replied, the uncertainty in his voice betraying his bravado. I leaned in slightly, almost conspiratorially. "You know, I've been thinking about how important it is for my wife to feel supported during all this. I wouldn't want anyone to take advantage of her at such a vulnerable time, would we?" Ryan's expression twisted into a mixture of guilt and confusion, and I felt a rush of satisfaction. I was in control now, and I wanted him to know that I was onto him. As I left the meeting, I felt a surge of empowerment. I had taken the first steps toward detaching myself from Lisa and her betrayal, and I was resolute in my decision to move forward. However, I was also aware that I needed to confront Lisa one last time before I could truly begin to let go. That evening I sat her down after dinner. She could sense the weight in the air. "Mark, what's going on? You've been acting weird lately," she said, her brow furrowing in concern. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "I need you to understand something, Lisa. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I can't ignore what's happened between you and Ryan anymore. I deserve to be treated with respect, and right now I don't feel that way." Her face fell, and I watched as she struggled to find words. "Mark, please don't say that. I'm trying to make things right. I regret everything, I really do." I interrupted her. "It's too late for apologies, Lisa. I just met with Ryan today, and I can see how this all has affected both of us. I refuse to let him dictate my life or our wedding plans anymore. Mark, please, I want to fix this," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I want us to be happy again. We can work through this." I shook my head. "We need to be honest with ourselves. You need to figure out what you really want, and I need to think about what's best for me." The resolution in my voice surprised even me. I realized how adamant I was about moving forward without the weight of this betrayal bogging me down. That night I drafted an email to my lawyer detailing the steps I wanted to take regarding our separation. It felt liberating to put my thoughts into words. I no longer had to tiptoe around the subject. I was taking charge of my life. However, the emotional turmoil wasn't over yet. The next morning I received a text from Lisa while I was at work. "Can we talk? I really want to explain myself." My heart raced at the thought of another confrontation, but I agreed to meet her at a nearby coffee shop after work. There was something about the way she wrote the message that made me uneasy, but I wanted to hear her out one last time. When I arrived at the cafe, I spotted Lisa sitting at a table, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. She looked like she had been crying. As I sat down, she immediately reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. "We need to talk, not touch," I said, my voice firm. "Mark, I'm so sorry for what I've done. I've been reflecting on everything. Ryan meant nothing to me. It was a mistake. I was scared about our future together, and I didn't know how to handle it," she began, her voice trembling. "Scared?" I echoed incredulously. "That's your excuse. You think cheating is justified because you were scared. You betrayed everything we built, Lisa. You shattered my trust." Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see the remorse painted across her features. I know I messed up, and I regret it every single day. I want to make things right. I'll do anything." "Anything?" I asked, challenging her. "What does that even mean? You think you can just erase what happened and we can go back to how things were? I can't do that, Lisa. I need to protect myself." She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "I understand if you need space. I just need you to know that I love you. I want to salvage our marriage," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt a pang of pain in my chest, but I had to stay strong. "It's not that simple. I don't know if I can trust you again. I've been exploring my options, and I'm talking to a lawyer," I admitted, gauging her reaction. Her face fell, and I could see the realization hit her like a wave. "You're serious?" "Yes. I think it's best for both of us to take time apart," I stated, feeling resolute. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the fight leaving her as she processed my words. "Mark, please don't do this," she begged softly. "I'll change, I swear. I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." I shook my head, my heart heavy. "I can't keep living in this uncertainty. I need to find my own happiness, and I can't do that with you clinging to me, hoping I'll forget the pain you caused." As we sat in that cafe, I realized that I had made the right choice. I was taking my life back, one step at a time. I knew the road ahead would be tough, but I also knew that I deserved more than a relationship mired in betrayal. Walking away from that coffee shop, I felt freer than I had in weeks. I was ready to fully embrace my journey toward healing, and I was determined to make the most of it. The emotional impact of betrayal was still there, but I was ready to rise above it. I had learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and my own worth. Now I was committed to reclaiming my life and moving toward a happier future. After that fateful coffee shop meeting, things moved at a rapid pace. I spent my days at work, trying to focus on my responsibilities, but my mind often drifted back to the conversations with Lisa and the choices I had made. I was starting to feel the weight of the decisions I had to face, but there was a strange comfort in knowing I was taking control of my own life. I finalized my arrangements with the lawyer and started preparing for the possibility of a separation. The paperwork was daunting, but I found solace in the idea that I was creating a future that was mine. I began to envision a life without the constant reminders of betrayal. In the following weeks, I made strides in every area of my life. I began reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in a while, going out for drinks and enjoying life again. I started jogging in the mornings, channeling my frustrations and emotions into physical activity. It felt good to sweat out the pain, and I noticed how my confidence began to return. One Friday evening, I decided to hit up a local bar with a few buddies. I was still in the early stages of processing everything, but I felt more at ease with myself. My friends were supportive, and they encouraged me to start fresh. "You're going to be fine, man. You'll bounce back from this," one of them said, clapping me on the back with enthusiasm. As the night wore on, I spotted a woman across the bar, Sarah, a friend from college. She had always been attractive and outgoing, and I had fancied her back in the day but never had the guts to make a move. After a few drinks, I felt emboldened enough to approach her. I introduced myself, and we quickly fell into an easy conversation. It felt refreshing to flirt and laugh without the weight of betrayal hanging over my head. "Wow, it's been ages. I didn't know you were back in town," she said, her eyes lighting up as we chatted. "Yeah, just going through some changes in my life," I replied, keeping it vague. As the night progressed, we exchanged numbers, and I felt a rush of excitement at the prospect of a fresh start. A small part of me was nervous about dating again, but I also realized that I deserved happiness. I needed to move on, not just from Lisa, but from the pain that had clouded my life for far too long. Meanwhile, Lisa was still reaching out, trying to convince me that she wanted to make amends. I had decided to keep my distance, and I was firm in that decision. I didn't respond to her messages immediately, allowing myself the time to really think about my feelings. I needed this space to figure out what I wanted and who I wanted to be. One day, about a month after our coffee shop confrontation, Lisa showed up at my workplace. My stomach dropped when I saw her standing there, looking anxious and vulnerable. I motioned for her to follow me outside, away from prying eyes. "Mark, I can't stop thinking about you," she blurted out, her eyes welling up with tears. "I miss you. I miss us. I want to fix this. Please, let's go to couples therapy. I'll do whatever it takes." I took a deep breath. The pain of her betrayal was still fresh, and I felt a mix of anger and pity for her. "Lisa, I appreciate that you're trying, but I've already made my decision. I can't just pretend everything is fine and go back to how things were. I need to focus on myself right now." "But we can work through this together," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I know I messed up, but I'll change, I promise. I've even started seeing a therapist on my own." I shook my head, feeling a sense of finality. "You need to realize that I can't be the one to fix this for you. I've got to focus on my own healing, and that means stepping away from our relationship." She started to cry, and it broke my heart to see her like that, but I stood firm. I couldn't let her manipulate me with tears anymore. "I'm sorry, Lisa. I truly wish you well, but I can't go back to being the person I was. I deserve better than this." The conversation hung heavy in the air, and I could see that she was grasping at straws, trying to hold onto what we once had. But I knew deep down that I had to let go. I watched as she walked away, defeated and heartbroken, and it felt like a chapter was finally closing. In the weeks that followed, I continued to explore new avenues in my life. I went on a few dates with Sarah, and while they were light and fun, I was careful not to rush into anything serious. I was still healing, and I wanted to take my time. It was refreshing to laugh and enjoy the simple pleasure of someone's company without the weight of the past dragging me down. I began to spend more time enjoying my hobbies, playing guitar, writing, and spending weekends hiking. I was rediscovering myself, free from the constraints of my previous relationship. One evening, sitting on my balcony with a drink in hand, I reflected on the journey I had been on. I realized that while the betrayal hurt deeply, it had also provided me with clarity. I now understood what it meant to prioritize my happiness and my well-being. As I moved into this new phase of my life, I embraced the lessons learned from the experience. Trust is fragile, and love requires open communication and honesty from both partners. I was ready to embrace whatever came next with a newfound strength and resilience. I had closed the chapter on my life with Lisa, but I was also excited about the possibilities that lay ahead. The future was bright, and I was determined to keep moving forward, one step at a time. The months rolled by, and with each passing day, I felt more anchored in my decision to move on from Lisa. I had taken the time to heal and reflect, and I could see the pieces of my life coming together again. It was as if I had finally emerged from a fog that had clouded my vision for far too long. With Sarah, things progressed slowly, which suited me just fine. We went out for casual dinners, explored new parts of the city, and shared stories of our pasts. I found myself laughing again, genuinely laughing. It felt wonderful to connect with someone new, to feel that spark of attraction. Without the baggage of a shattered relationship hanging over us, I was careful not to rush into anything serious, and Sarah respected my pace. One evening, we went to a local jazz bar where the atmosphere was intimate and warm, filled with the sounds of a live band. As we sat at a small table with drinks in hand, I felt a sense of ease wash over me. "I'm really glad we're getting to know each other," I said, looking into her eyes. "I've been through a lot, and it feels good to share this time with someone who understands." Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I get it. It's about being there for each other, right? I'm here for you, whatever that looks like." Her words filled me with comfort. I had finally found someone who appreciated my journey. Meanwhile, I had taken the steps to meet with my lawyer and finalize the separation from Lisa. The process felt surreal, but it was necessary. We arranged for the division of assets and discussed everything that needed to be done. I made sure to keep things as amicable as possible. I didn't want any unnecessary drama. Lisa had already suffered enough from her actions, and I wanted a clean break for both our sakes. When the day came to sign the papers, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It marked the end of a chapter in my life, but also the beginning of something new. Lisa and I had a brief exchange of words, and while the hurt was still there, I could sense a shift in our dynamic. We both understood that it was time to move on. "I hope you find happiness, Mark," she said, her voice soft. I nodded, realizing that I too wished her well, even after everything that had transpired. From that point, I began to embrace my newfound freedom. I traveled a bit, exploring places I had always wanted to see, and I indulged in hobbies I had neglected during the tumultuous time with Lisa. I took up photography and spent weekends capturing beautiful moments in nature. It was liberating to express myself creatively, and I began sharing my photos online. The response was overwhelmingly positive, which fueled my passion even more. Sarah and I continued to date casually, enjoying each other's company without any pressure. I appreciated the fact that she respected my past and allowed me to heal in my own time. I felt more at peace than I had in years. We shared laughter over casual dinners and stargazed in the park, talking about everything and nothing. Then one evening, after a particularly lovely day spent hiking, Sarah and I shared a quiet moment on my balcony. The sun was setting, casting golden hues across the sky. As we sat together, I felt a rush of warmth toward her. "No, I think you're amazing," I said, turning to her. "You've really helped me through a tough time, and I appreciate it more than you know." She looked at me, her expression sincere. "You deserve to be happy, Mark. You've been through so much, and I admire your strength. Just remember, it's okay to take your time." In that moment, I realized that I was beginning to open my heart again. I had been so focused on healing and moving on that I hadn't fully considered what it meant to let someone new in. But with Sarah, it felt different. I felt ready to take the next step, cautiously and with intention. As the months turned into a year, I found myself growing not only in my personal life but also in my career. I received a promotion at work that came with new responsibilities, and I embraced the challenges that came my way. I felt driven, passionate, and motivated. I was finally building a life that felt fulfilling and meaningful. One night, as I was reviewing some new projects at home, I received a message from Lisa. It was unexpected, and my heart raced as I opened it. She wrote, "I've been doing a lot of soul searching since we parted ways. I just wanted to reach out and say thank you for the lessons. I realize now how much I took for granted. I wish you all the best in your journey." Reading her words brought up a mix of emotions, but ultimately I felt a sense of closure. I realized I had forgiven her, not for her sake but for my own peace of mind. I replied with a brief message, wishing her well in her life too. I felt lighter after sending it, as if another weight had been lifted. Reflecting on the entire experience, I came to understand that life is a series of lessons, some painful and others uplifting. The betrayal I faced taught me about self-worth, love, and resilience. It shaped me into someone who now approaches life with open eyes and an open heart. As I looked ahead, I was filled with hope. I knew that life would continue to throw challenges my way, but I felt ready to meet them head-on. With Sarah and my new path, I was eager to embrace the future. I had learned that while love can hurt, it can also heal. I was ready to take on whatever came next, knowing that I possessed the strength to overcome anything. My journey was just beginning, and I was excited for all that lay ahead.